First, Dave, thank you so much for being a part of the Sara Carter Show. I'm so grateful to have you on. I love your podcast, though. I love the Rubin Report. I think it's fantastic. You got great guests. I was pretty riveted by one of my most favorite guests you've ever had on your show, and that's your husband. And I'm just going to start off with that because I want to start off with that because I thought that was such an awesome kind of intimate insider baseball story of how you met President Trump. And I know it's going to drive people, the 5 people that listen to me, to your show immediately. They will be like right there listening. So
first off, I know there's far more than 5 people.
That is
but
true.
I love that because, look, I've had some pretty great people, whether it's, Jordan Peterson or Thomas Sowell or President Trump, for example.
Right.
But the fact that you want to ask me about the interview with my husband is kind of hilarious. I mean, in effect, what we were doing, we were just doing a little recap of what it was like to meet President Trump. And we met President Trump right at the heart, right in the middle of that first impeachment. Remember, we had 2 sham impeachments. It was right in the middle of the first one. And everyone was saying the walls are closing in and he's freaking out. And
right.
He's there, everything's going crazy. And I had done a speaking gig that morning for Turning Point USA, their big student action summit. And then it was announced that Trump was going to come, so they canceled everybody else. So in effect, I ended up opening for Trump. And then after he spoke, I bumped into Don Jr. in the hallway. We've become sort of friendly. And he said, hey, do you want to join us for dinner at Mar-a-Lago? I said, well, of course. We went. His dad was there. He introduced me. And just in case anyone hasn't seen the interview real quick, he said, Dad, this is Dave Rubin. He's a great podcaster. And he looks at me and he's sitting and he looks up and he goes, oh, I kind of recognize you. And I said, oh, well, I'm on Tucker a lot. And he turns to David, my husband, and he says, well, who are you? And he goes, well, I'm his husband. And Trump goes, husband? Husband, I can't believe it. I want to get up and shake your hands. And he shakes our hands. And then he goes, Melania, can you believe it? These 2 guys are gay. He goes, their only problem is they're too handsome. And then we had really a nice couple minutes, and Junior got pulled away for a second, and I had about 2 or 3 minutes with Trump where I told him my crazy theory that Mike Bloomberg was just a decoy because Bloomberg was about to get in the race, and I thought he was a decoy to take some heat off Biden. I think that was a great theory. I'm pretty sure I was right on that one. And he was just a good, decent man, and none of the things that they say. So, look, I can't tell you that the guy tells the truth all the time or that he's perfect or anything like that. But the idea that he's a homophobe, the idea that he's a racist or anything in line with that, it's just pure nonsense. And I think I said in that interview with my husband that the real shocker was not that. The shocker was when I told Trump my theory about Bloomberg, he put his hand across the table to Melania's hand, touched her hand, and he goes, honey, what do you think about this? And then he had me repeat the story to her. And I thought, if you were some evil misogynist whose wife was basically like a sex slave, the way the media portrays it, would your first reaction be when someone tells you something interesting to put your hand on your wife's hand and say, honey, what do you think of this? So it's all just nonsense. It's just nonsense.
It's nonsense, but it's dangerous. And the reason I wanted to bring up that interview with your husband and the reason why I thought it was so brilliant is because you, like me, have been very focused on disinformation and how the media and how politicians and lawmakers and others have been able to weaponize systems to push a certain narrative, to target certain people. I think Glenn Greenwald is also very brilliant when it comes to this. He's, when he started The Intercept, and shame on The Intercept, but I think Glenn Greenwald is better off without them. But when he did that, he was very level. He never fell one side or the other. You always knew that Glenn was going to talk about just the facts and how things played out, whether it pissed off the left, whether it pissed off the right, it didn't matter. You do the same thing. It's brilliant, actually, because you're able to look at someone and say, look, this is the truth. This is my impression of this man that you guys have torn apart publicly. Whether you like him or not, whether you like his style or not, you've made up these complete lies about him. Now we're seeing it all over the place. We're seeing it with parents who oppose CRT. I'd love to get your thoughts on Merrick Garland. We see it with what's happening even within the gay community, you know, like, and that would be, I would like to know a little bit about that. You know, I talked to Ambassador Rick Grinnell, you know, and how people have just tried to put him in a box and say, well, you must not be one of us. You're something else altogether different. Let me ask you, do you believe we're living in a very dangerous age where, because of social media, because of everything else, disinformation can really harm our democracy and our future and frankly, the American people?
Yes, yes, and yes. I mean, we're living in a dangerous age because we now can expose the lies of mainstream media in real time. So, you know, for the many decades that we couldn't do that, meaning, you know, for decades in America, you had basically 3 news channels, ABC, NBC, CBS, and at 6:30 p.m., depending on whether you like Tom Brokaw or Peter Jennings or Dan Rather, you know, they were pretty much talking about the same stuff. And it was really, oh, do you like their affect, or do you think one is nicer than the other, and that's why you'd watch, if you would watch. But it was also this idea that they were all on at the same time. It sort of kept a national cohesion. And not only did they pretty much cover the same stuff, but they probably led basically with the same story every day. And in a certain respect, that kept America kind of centered, for better or worse, meaning that the average person out there, we were all sharing the basic same news. And even if you didn't agree on a tax rate or you didn't agree on abortion, it was like we all lived in the same world. Then, of course, cable news comes along. So CNN comes early 80s. And now there's 24-hour cable news, and they got to keep you excited all the time and keep you watching. And that's not to say that CNN was always terrible. CNN now is a complete disinformation network and propaganda network. But, you know, I remember, I'm 45 years old. I remember when I was in, I think it was 9th grade, when the first Iraq war happened, the war in Kuwait.
Right.
And I remember being glued to the TV and being in social studies class, excited as they were showing us CNN clips, because it was amazing. They were reporters on the ground,
right,
talking
Wolf
about
Blitzer.
what was going on.
Wolf Blitzer was there. Christiana
Wolf Blitzer, when he was a yeah, I never really liked her, but Wolf Blitzer was an actual reporter. Amanpour, I think, has repeatedly been exposed that she covers for some of the worst regimes on earth.
Yeah, Iran
but that's a separate issue. But yeah, exactly. And then what happened is, you know, then we get MSNBC and we get the Counterpoint on Fox. Now you can cater, you know, your news to your taste, all of those things. But again, it's the 24-hour thing. It keeps us kind of crazy. And then what happens is the internet gets born. And now suddenly, because we can record video, well, now we start seeing their lies. And then there are commentators online, YouTube, etc., who start exposing the lies. And then they start doubling down on the lies because they realize they're losing their grip on power. And now, after about 20 years of that leads us to where we're at now, where at this point, I think the CNN especially, but New York Times, all of the mainstream media outlets have been exposed to be basically Democrat partisan operations. Fox is a different situation. I'm happy to talk about that. But basically, that's how the mainstream works. CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, et cetera, they launder the lies of the Democrats, and they push whatever fits the narrative to make the rest of us seem racist and bigoted. You know, Brett Kavanaugh's a serial rapist. The Covington kids are racist. Jesse Smollett almost got hanged. Russia hoax. We can go through it. They used to be able to get away with it. Now we can expose them for it. And I'll just throw in one more, which to me was the most egregious of all of them, because Joe Biden literally put this in his campaign launch video when he said he was going to run for president. The very fine people on both sides hoax, when after Charlottesville, they made it sound like Trump was equating white supremacists with just average people, meaning, there's good people on both sides. But if you actually watch the full thing, a minute before that, he was he absolutely condemned the white supremacists and the neo-Nazis. That's what he says. But no one that only watches CNN or reads those papers that I mentioned sees any of that stuff. And so basically that chasm between what we can now expose and what they show us, that has gotten so wide that's what I'm worried about, because everybody's sort of falling into the space between those things now, where it's like, we don't know what's true anymore.
I think that's what people are so afraid of. But you brought up something, I think it's like actually brilliant. You should probably write a book on this, because when you think about it, it's like, no, Mike Wallace, and you're talking about the very beginning. I think there was this elitist belief, not that they weren't truthful. I think that in their own way, they become this elitist group of people that believe they know what's appropriate for the American people. They know what's appropriate to put out in the news. They become friends with the big players. We've seen that in Washington. You know, I love it when Washington reporters, you know, beg to go to like a White House Christmas party or want to be. I mean, they're not just entertainers. They're not doing podcasts. They're supposed to be investigating these, you know, keeping our government in check. But instead, they want to be the best friend of every senator, every lawmaker. They want to go to all the parties. And when that happens, you lose something. You lose that ability to actually tell the story, right? Just as it is.
Well, think about the way we even talk about that, because of course what you're saying is true, but even the way we talk about that, for 4 years of Trump's presidency, the press is under attack. Trump is attacking the press.
Right.
Now, had Trump taken press credentials away, meaning people that you know, put people in jail and literally stop people from reporting, that would have been a problem.
Or spied on them like Obama did. Or spied on reporters like Obama did. I'm just throwing that out there.
Right. No, he asked James Rosen what Obama did to him. So, but the real heart of it is that they were in essence saying, oh, we don't like being pushed back. We like it when you swallow all of our lies and that's it. Right. So when a Democrat's president, you can see what happens right now. There's no pushback. There's the one guy, what's his name, Ducey from Fox, that sits in the front with Jen Psaki. He's the one guy that pushes back.
Poor
but everybody
Peter,
else
poor Peter.
goes,
He is really out there just asking like the one question. Everybody's like on pins and needles. What's Peter going to ask today? Peter Ducey, ask it. Just ask it. And then Jen has to come back with the Peter Ducey comeback. It's like a...
Right, she's got her like prepackaged comeback. I mean, she's just the worst. That girl could not tell you the truth. If you asked her what her favorite color is, she would say 4. Right. Like, the woman cannot say anything even remotely close to true. But you know, all press secretaries obviously lie in a certain way. It sort of comes with the job. But if you look at the difference that, say, someone like Haley McInerney had to deal with, then Psaki, I like Haley. I thought she was extremely good. I'm not saying everything she said was true, but she was dealing with a press that was on the attack versus Psaki is dealing with a press that's trying to cover for the lies. That's very different. That is very, very different. And that will, the way it's built right now, that will always happen. The press is by and large Democrat or lefty. They are here to protect their guy, and they are here to destroy the other guy. I think Trump understood that. That was his greatest strength, although, you know, ultimately it didn't work.
But Dave, with a bureaucracy that is also bought and sold, right? With a bureaucracy, I mean, we're supposed to be free. You know, I mean, what happened to the left and the liberals that were, you know, like Frank Church, you know, with the church hearings saying, hey, you know, the NSA is spying on all of you. We got to stop this. Or, hey, you know, it's unacceptable. People should be able to talk freely on college campuses. Or, hey, maybe there's a problem with just teaching this aspect of critical race theory, or maybe dividing classrooms into black, white, Asian, and Latino is kind of racist, and we shouldn't be doing that. What is going on in our world that everything is so upside down? That's what scares me. When the press is bought out, when you have a bureaucracy that has someone like Merrick Garland saying, wow, parents really should not be speaking out against their school board. For crying out loud, that's like an American passage when you have children. You're supposed to go up and like get mad at the school board. You're supposed to pound on something and be like Jimmy Stewart, you know? Like
There's nothing better than watching a woman from Long Island, like an Italian woman from Long Island, go up to a school board and start giving them crap. Like, it's one of the most beautiful things that there is. But what you're really asking here sort of is what happened to liberalism? Because I think what we're watching the modern liberal order collapse. And as you know, the book behind me, I mean, it was an entire defense of classical liberalism, which in many ways I think is the right set of ideas for a free society. Most of the founders were classical liberals, which in many ways is modern day conservatism. We can talk about that a little bit. But meaning we believe in individual rights, we believe in laissez-faire economics, we believe in states' rights. You want the market to mostly do things, you want people to make choices for themselves. The progressives destroyed liberalism. there are virtually no good liberals left. Yes, there's half of Bill Maher, and then there's 2 or 3 people
him.
like Barry
Bill.
Weiss.
I like that half of him, Bill Maher. That half of Bill Maher is awesome. I like that.
So I agree with that. I would say my problem with Bill Maher now, and I would love to talk to him about this, and I don't mean this as an attack, but Bill Maher, in essence, he's sort of an elite liberal, meaning he's worth $1 gajillion. He's in Hollywood. He can step away. He can always promote liberalism while at the same time it's the liberals and the progressives who vote in all of the people that are destroying the country that he's always complaining about, right? So what's Bill Maher's biggest issue? Well, free speech. Well,
right.
Who's destroying free speech right now? It's the progressives. And yet Bill Maher, on his show every week, will basically tell people, keep voting for Democrats, and whatever you do, don't vote for those conservatives because they're religious and racist. Like, that's if you distilled him down. So I agree with you. I don't think he's a bad man. I've admired him for a long time. And again, I would love to discuss this with him. But I think what you get at the end of liberalism is what Bill Maher is, sort of, where you've sort of got the right idea, but your policies are all wrong. And in Bill's case, you've done it for so long that it would be a hell of a move for Bill Maher at almost 70 years old to be like, actually, I was championing liberalism for the last 30 years in America, but liberals have failed me. He does kind of say that, or liberalism has failed me. But actually, the conservatives are the ones defending all that. That would be a very hard move for him to make.
I don't know. I think he might be there. I really hope he takes you up on your offer, because I've been seeing slowly but surely little glimpses of this Bill Maher that looks like he's just as confused as the rest of us. And, I've always been very outspoken on social issues. I've had, and I think that, for many reasons, maybe because I covered the border or because I covered the Trump administration, people assume things, right? They just assume things about you that aren't even true. You're like, well, you don't even know me then because you don't know this part of me, right? But the media kind of molds people the way that they want. And maybe it's not just the media. It's the ability to ostracize another person. It's like when people were afraid to say they were Trump supporters, or somebody's afraid to come out of the closet, right? In the early 1980s or 70s, where everybody's afraid of saying what they really feel and who they really are because they're afraid the rest of the world is going to come after them. And that's what scares me, Dave. That's what scares me. That's what keeps me up at night. People say that. I'm like, where are we going? Where are we going? We're a democracy. We're supposed to be a republic where we could feel free to say what we want. And now we're not doing that because the leftist socialist types are making us so uncomfortable that people are afraid to even stand up for their children at school. People are afraid if they're gay and they speak up on issues that are more conservative leaning in the national security area or whatever, that they're going to be targeted by their own community, that they're going to be ostracized. Am I right or am I wrong? Do you see this?
No, you're not only right. I mean, I'll give you an example that I think everyone will understand, and that is also personal to me. My friend Peter Thiel, who is the co-founder of PayPal that everyone knows, he's a libertarian. He just doesn't want the government involved in your life. That's his basic ethos, I think. And he's a good, decent man, and I know him well. He is gay. I have had many dinners with he and his husband, and my husband. I assure you, he is gay. When he came out, which was only about 6 years ago or so publicly, I believe it was either Out Magazine or The Advocate. One of those are the two big gay magazines. I mean, no one really reads that stuff anymore. I don't believe in separate but equal. We don't need separate things. I'm pretty sure gay people can read the same magazines as straight people. But in effect, it was either Out or Advocate wrote a piece basically saying Peter Thiel is not gay. Yes, he does it with guys, but that's not what gay is. Gay is something else, meaning it's a political ideology, basically. So now the people
who aren't black, or you ain't black if you don't vote for me. You mean that kind of President Biden statement?
Bingo. Bingo.
Yeah, I speak Spanish, but I'm not really Latina, like that.
The thing is, they're the racists. They're the bigots. They're the homophobes. If you only like a certain set of people because they behave the way you want them to behave, then you're not as liberal or open-minded as you might think. These people will run around screaming they love black people. Oh my God, we love black people. we're anti-racists, they're the racists. Then you say, well, what do you think about Candace Owens? What do you think about David Webb? What do you think about Thomas Sowell? What do you think about Larry Elder? The LA Times called my friend Larry Elder the black face of white supremacy.
I couldn't believe that when I saw that.
That's what they do.
I couldn't believe it. It was disgusting. It was disgusting.
But there ain't much that you can put past these people. And I think what people need to understand is, if you want to get over that nonsense and be only judged by what you say and what you think and how you behave, then there's a huge space on the right. It doesn't mean you have to be a traditional, as you pointed out. You don't have to be a traditional conservative, say a traditional religious conservative, and believe everything perhaps on gay marriage and abortion. But then I would say you're a little more on the libertarian side of it. That's probably where I am. I sense maybe that's a little bit where you are. But if we can all agree, hey, that disagreement there or that space is like a pretty rich place to build a society, well, then we have the widest tent in the history of politics. And that's what they're so afraid of.
That's what they're afraid of. But we live in a society that is supposed to be, by definition, a place where we can have that space, a place where we could say, hey, we all have that space to move around. You know, Dave believes this, I believe that, Peter Thiel believes this. I always tell young people, and I don't know, if this, I'm sure this is something that you say too, especially, talking at Turning Point events, don't let people define who you are. Don't let them define you. Just because you believe in one thing this way doesn't mean you have to believe in it that way. It doesn't mean that because you believe in a strong national security doesn't mean you can't believe in being more liberal socially. I don't understand that. And maybe because I grew up in a very open family where we didn't have we didn't peg people. We didn't have definitions. I'm a mixture of everything. I thought about that when, Ben Shapiro and my friend Joe Baswari, people have literally called them Nazis. They're Jewish.
Yep.
They're practicing Jews. I mean, they've got their yarmulke.
Yeah.
They how could that possibly, how could you possibly call that person a Nazi? I don't understand this. And that be okay with the rest of society. And then instead of being ostracized.
Logically and ethically, you can't do it if you're going to be considered a sensible person, but society sort of doesn't operate in that sphere right now. The idea that Ben Shapiro is a Nazi, not only is he Orthodox yarmulke-wearing Jew, he gets more online hate. They've done studies. He gets more online hate from the true sort of racist, trolly right, whatever that thing is. And by the way, it's hard to figure out what that is. Is it just a bunch of 16-year-olds who are just trolling all day or whatever? But in terms of the most pictures of people in gas chambers sent to them on Twitter, it probably goes to Ben Shapiro. The idea that Ben Shapiro is a white supremacist is absolutely insane. But the thing is, they've chosen what the left has done, and fueled by the cover that the media offers them, and then big tech algorithms that boost all of their nonsense while deflating our truth, not our truth, the truth, we happen to be the ones delivering it, is they've done something very dangerous, because that you take good, decent people who are not saying extreme things. Ben Shapiro, if this was 1987, Ben Shapiro would be considered the most vanilla sort of moderate Republican you could manage. But by the way, they were calling Ronald Reagan all sorts of awful things back then too. But it's not as if Ben Shapiro is like a true, whatever you would want to call like a true right-winger, like he's trying to deport all of these people, or he wants a white ethno-state, or any of this sheer nonsense. Is he absolutely pro-life? He is. Can we have a conversation about that? Yes, and I have had that conversation with him. But they've outsourced all of their critical thinking to a bunch of hysterical activists, and I don't see any of the good liberals. I would put Bill Maher in that tiny little bucket that's slightly pushing against it. But at the end of the day, just to bring it back to that for 1 second, at the end of the day, if Bill Maher's worldview is, oh man, it is the left that's destroying all of the things that I love about liberalism, and boy, the right really isn't doing that, and they kind of like me now, as you said, they kind of like me, even though I disagree with them obviously on religion at the very, most existential, but all sorts of policy stuff. But if at the end your answer is, but guys, vote for Democrats, Adam Schiff, come on my show and I'll support you, I will give Barack Obama $1 million as Maher did, well, then there's a problem. Right. And that's what my frustration with this last sliver of liberals, sort of the Barry Weiss types. It's like, yes, do I think you're sort of doing something right and good? Yeah. And I don't mean to make this about people, but at the end, if your end conclusion is, well, then vote the wrong way because at least you're not still one of those racist conservatives, then it's a problem.
You're right. You're right about that. That gave me a lot to think about. I feel like I've got like light bulb moments happening all over the place with you, Dave. It's like you're so brilliant. Before I let you go, I want to ask you questions because I want to talk about.
I'll try
your
to
chickens.
be briefer.
No.
Yes.
I want you to stay on. I want to stay on for like hours with you. I'm worried more about your time. I'm like I could be here forever eating my chicken. But by the way, I've got to tell people about your chickens. Before we came on the air, I was talking about Chick-fil-A. I had someone picked up some Chick-fil-A. I heard Dave talking about chicken, and you had some pretty awesome chickens growing up.
Yeah.
Right?
We used to have not growing up. We had them actually until about 2 years ago. We had backyard chickens for about 3 years here in crazy LA. The reason we ended up getting rid of them was that our dog,
there was a zoning law? No, there was no
No, well, technically, I assure you, the way I had the coop set up was not legal here in LA. Okay. But our dog Emma, who was wonderful, and she was a rescue from Hurricane Katrina way back when. She was 16, getting on in years, had cancer. It was taking a lot of our energy to take care of her. So to have these backyard chickens in hot LA summer was getting tough. So we gave them to a friend who has an open air situation. So the chickens are all good.
Farm.
But our chickens,
farm. You can send them to the farm.
We sent them to the factory farm, but the chickens were named Blanche Featherow, Stevie Chicks, and Princess Leia. The two names that we didn't get to were Feather Locklear and Kim Kardashian.
Will you ever have a Kim Kardashian in your chicken coop in the future? Will you ever have one?
I hope to. We don't have chickens right now, but I would hope wherever I end up one day when I go out to pasture that we will have chickens again.
This is it, and you're not going to end up in the pasture or wherever. I want to ask you: are you going to stay in California? What's going on with that? When will you come to Austin? When will you come? I want to. I want you to come this. I did it, Dave. I got up. I said, if we sell the house, we're moving to Texas. Right? I just said, if we can do it. I was living in Alexandria. I loved it. I'm not taking it away. But there were things I didn't like. I didn't want to be in the swamp the whole time. I wanted to have a life. I'm living sure like you do, outside of the whole thing. And we did. We ended up, it was like kind of like a miracle. Like two people walked in and they were like, we want your house. And I was like, okay. We're moving. Like, we're going to go. So what about you?
Well,
what about you and Dave? Are you guys thinking about moving? Are you thinking, quote unquote, maybe Texas, maybe Florida? I'm just talking about states without taxes right now. So.
Gotcha. Well, first off, Alexandria is a great town, an old town.
Awesome.
My father used to live there, and it's just such a wonderful place. So I have no doubt that picking up and leaving was not the easiest thing to do. Look, Texas is great. I've got a great relationship with Glenn Beck and the guys from the Blaze there in Dallas. So, they've sort of wanted me out there. I like Austin, too. I sense that Florida will be the place for me because, I'm in the tech world now with what I'm doing with locals. Miami is obviously the new tech hub in the United States.
That is true.
And I have some family there as well. I don't have any family in Texas. But the truth is, I'm trying to figure out what to do. It's not just about me. I also have employees and things of that nature. And, I like fighting. I really do. This is not something that I knew about myself maybe a year and a half ago, but I enjoyed the recall fight. I'm not happy with the results.
Right.
But the idea of being like, you know what? You guys just won and it's over here. Like, it's really just over here and I gotta go. I don't like that. That being said, I get it. Financially, it makes no sense. Taxes, the general state of the oncoming, Marxist nonsense we're getting here. I don't love that, but I'm trying. I'm trying to figure out what to do. And, like you, it's like you don't just make a decision. It's not just you living in your own black hole. It's like you got to take into account your husband or wife, your friends, family, et cetera, and we shall see.
I know. But I get it. You know what? I get wanting to be in that fight because I do love California. I do have relatives there. I was born there. I was born in good old Pomona, California. It's like gangsta land. No, I remember growing up, in there, and I do miss the way California was. I miss that balance. It is crazy. I don't want to walk over someone's feces or, hang, or have someone shooting up in my front lawn or something like that, which did happen once to me. And, it's a terrible situation. So I get it. I know you want to, I will back you with whatever fight you want. You should run for governor. You know what? You should
listen.
I'm telling you.
After seeing what the media did to Larry, not only the media lying about Larry, but Joe Biden coming a day or two before the recall, refusing to even say Larry Elder's name. He keeps calling him a Trump clone. It's like Larry Elder, born in South Central LA, son of a janitor. Yes, he's a Trump clone. Trump, who was born basically a billionaire. I mean, these people are so evil. I don't know that I want to subject myself or my family to that sort of insanity.
I totally
But I would say
get it.
the bigger point is, if someone like me can't live here, like if we're really at the point where America's like, all right, everybody just split off and go to the color state that fits you, and that'll be it. Well, then we really are at the end of America. I don't know that. Maybe we are there. Maybe we're there already. I don't want to believe it, but maybe we are.
That's a profound thought, because I've had that same exact thought. And I was trying to end on a high note. Thanks, Dave. I was trying to end on a high note with all your chickens.
Well,
and now I'm back at the low point again, wondering if there is this massive change that's happening. I think we all feel it. And I don't know how to put my fingers on it. I mean, there's so many things I'm excited about. I'm excited about a future where we've got people like Elon Musk, sending regular civilians into space and, showing the world that things can be done innovatively. I'm excited about Miami becoming the hub of, technology. And by the way, I love Miami and I love Florida. It was a toss-up. It was really hard. It was really, really hard. And I love the beach. But it is this profound feeling that I live in the most amazing nation on earth, the most beautiful place on this planet, as far as ideas and freedom and everything else is contained, and that it could be like slipping through our hands. And maybe, I guess, on a final note here, what can people do? All of us. I mean, I say don't be quiet anymore, speak out, don't be afraid. But what's your advice to regular Joes just like us who eat Chick-fil-A, who, have chickens in our backyard and who don't mind just going to Walmart and being a deplorable, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, well, look, I'm a regular guy, too. I'm just a guy who happened to start a YouTube channel and start saying what I think, and then people started caring about it. But I'm no different than anyone else. And everyone you need to speak up for yourself. I mean, you need to think for yourself and speak up for yourself, right? That's what separates us from the animals. But people should take to heart what you said there, which is we might be at the end. We might be running out of fuel here. And if you think that your silence or your acquiescence now is going to save you, then you should read the story of the frog who got in the slowly boiling pot. Because yes, he did last a couple days or a few hours longer than the frog who just jumped into the boiling pot. But he does not last. It does not end well for that frog. It's a slow, painful death. And I think that that's maybe where we're at. It's like if you have kids right now and you're going to, let's say you have some hesitancy about vaccines for whatever reason, but you're going to let the government inject your child who's otherwise perfectly healthy. And then you're going to also, you're going to have your boss say, oh no, you have to be injected with something. I've got my director, Connor, here. I said to him the other day, it's like the idea that the government could say to me, I have to tell this guy that he has to get injected with something. Like, I don't own him. I'm pretty sure he can make the decisions for himself. We've put ourselves in such a terrible situation, but the only people who will save us will be ourselves. There is no magical force coming to save us. The Jedi are not on the way. There's nobody coming. We can do it ourselves, and it starts at the bottom. It starts with you, your husband, your local community, building up that way. It's not coming from the top. Even if we got whoever we might want to be president, let's say DeSantis became president, who I would vote for in a second, I think is a real decent guy. He can't fix all this. You can fix some of it.
No, you're right. You're right. We should not be the frogs slowly boiling away, and I'm afraid it's a wake-up call, guys. If you're out there and you had a light bulb moment with Dave, because I did. I had a few just sitting here talking. I feel like it's therapeutic talking to you. I don't know. Do people tell you that sometimes?
I enjoyed it. I
really enjoy it. I love doing the show. I love talking to you, and I agree. We all have to do our part to say, hey, you know what? This isn't who we are. We're not going to allow someone to tell us what to do. We're going to use our common sense. We have it, and we have our own abilities. Thank you so much, Dave Rubin, for being on the show. Everybody, please go listen to Dave Rubin. If you don't listen to his show, you're missing out. I'm giving you just a little taste. He could give you therapy every single day of the week. You go on there. He's been doing this forever. So you can watch all of his great shows and see the one with your husband. Your husband's amazing. Tell Dave I said hi. I hope I get to have dinner with both of you someday. Dinner with, in Austin, or wherever. But
yeah, I got some Texas plans. I think it's going to start in Dallas, but maybe we can meet up in Austin.
You got it. Dallas is a beautiful place too. Thanks so much, Dave. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Sara.